So I've been playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 pretty much non-stop for the past few days, and man, I just can't get enough of it. What I'm about to show you is only a bunch of early on impressions, and I will be dropping a full review on February 3rd, but so far I genuinely believe this game has a solid chance to be one of the best RPGs of this year. Warhorse Studios really cooked with this one, the world building is excellent, the game really does a great job at drawing you in. Characters are super likable too, so it's very easy to completely lose the track of time doing all of the things that you can do in Kingdom Come. So big thanks to the devs for the early review code a whole month in advance. I will however say this, these early impressions come from somebody who doesn't have much experience with the first game, as for one reason or another I never got a chance to finish it, but knowing what I know now, I really wish I made more time for it. That being said, I don't want to talk about the plot too much for spoiler reasons, but what I can tell you is that the story continues roughly from where the first game left off, so you'll continue to play as Henry, but there will be returning characters like Hans Capone and a few more others that you likely spotted in the trailers. The super early part of the game, like the first 2 or 3 missions, are a bit more linear, but after certain events early on, and especially once you hit the first town of Troskowitz, this is when the game really opens up. And I want to talk about the freedom that you have in this game. I really can't give enough praises to the game in how much freedom it gives you in both how you choose to proceed with the main and the side content likewise. Like, you can get a few early on hints that can really help you and point you in the right direction, such as where you could find a horse, get some equipment, maybe even get some work done and so on, but it's entirely up to you how you choose to proceed from this point on. Even early on, there's this big wedding happening and there is an important story reason for why you need to attend, and the game offers you a few routes to get in. And in doing so, you'll get to help certain characters, which in turn can be very lucrative for you. So along the way, you're free to pursue the main narrative or tackle some of the side content or any combination of this unless there is a point of no return. And this is where I spent most of my past few days, pretty much completing as much side content and side missions as possible, which by the way is at least on par in terms of quality with that of the main narrative. I went from village to village, met a whole bunch of people, got involved with a whole bunch of quests, all very organically. Sometimes I would stop by an innkeeper and ask about some local news, and they would talk about certain events or places that I would then learn about or find on my own in my journeys. I think that this is one of the best ways to handle objectives in video games, hands down. Like, it doesn't hold your hands completely how most modern games do nowadays, but it's also not completely vague either, so it hits that sweet spot that you really want, letting you take the brunt of exploration but still providing clues so that you feel that you're completing things on your own accord. Even within these side quests, you can either rush to complete them right away and ignore all side objectives, but that's not something I really recommend because there's so much more you can uncover if you just take your time, talk to NPCs, collect clues, which in turn provides more lore, more encounters, and yes, more loot. In fact, many of the side quests that I've completed had a lot of extra routes which I could take to complete that quest or ignore, like I said. Even a lot of them also had multiple endings. Choosing to side with one character or another provided different rewards and different conclusions, which is something that I absolutely love in RPGs. I'm not even kidding, you'll be shifting through gear, weapons, and even get rewarded extra if you go that extra length to completing these. It also helps that many of these characters are super likable, especially the ones that you can befriend are somebody you want on your side all the time. Even Hans, for example, is a very fun and engaging character to have alongside Henry, or well, the other way around actually, but even then, there are many other such situations in the game. I've encountered this group of nomads, for example, that I slowly got involved with and found out more about them. There's a very important reason why you want to do that, and it's not just satisfying from a story point of view, but also from rewards point of view. So again, you have to experience this on yourself to truly know what I mean. I don't want to spoil anything, but what I like is that you always see the game eliciting some kind of reaction from either the villains or the characters that you encounter. If it's somebody you really like, you're going to really like them. If it's a villain, you're usually going to hate them quite a bit. So as a storyteller, that is exactly what you want. You don't really want a character that doesn't elicit any reaction whatsoever from the viewer. For that reason, the world feels very much alive. NPCs are also on a 24-hour schedule, so during the day, you're going to see them engaging in whichever activity their designation holds. So they will wake up, they will work the fields, they will serve food and drinks. Also, soldiers tend to patrol the night. At night, they go to wash, change clothes, grab something to eat, and then they go to sleep, which also means that you can only kind of speak with most of them during the day, which can or cannot be a hindrance, but you can easily skip time or sleep on your bed and make time pass, as well as having your game saved. The open world is also quite unpredictable. You never know when you're going to encounter maybe bandits on the road or get ambushed by them, or maybe NPCs in need of help. Nothing of this is super advanced or new. There were definitely games that did this in the past, but it's still nice to see nonetheless that there is this layer of uncertainty that can happen on every single occasion, so that no adventure is like the previous. Maybe you're in the forest and a pack of wolves starts attacking you, or maybe you encounter a bunch of NPCs that you can start talking, chatting, and even befriend. There was this NPC at one point, a knight I entered a political debate with for one reason or another, and we just ended up dueling for some reason. And obviously he kicked my ass, but it was such a fun experience and so unexpected to see that happening by just randomly going out in the woods and then going by the main road. Now, one thing I found odd over here, and this could very much be a bug that will get fixed on day one, is that the way some NPCs talk to you during cutscenes and then in dialogue separately can be quite jarring. Like, for example, I was super friendly with this blacksmith character during mission cutscenes, and then in the normal dialogue conversation, he pretty much switches up instantly, calling me a vagabond, and he's on a whole different spectrum than he was literally 1 second ago, which I found hilarious. And it's not the only occasion. Literally almost every NPC will talk completely differently in the normal dialogues compared to those of the cutscenes, and that may have something to do with the attire that I have, because I pretty much have random gear on, and oftentimes it's bloody and even like muddy, so maybe that has something to do with it, but I still found it funny nonetheless. Now, on the subject of combat, this is mostly addressed to those of you who, maybe like me, initially were put off by the combat of the first game, but for everybody else, you likely already made up your mind. However, combat so far in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 feels very satisfying, way more than I initially remember from the first game. And there were some significant changes made to it too, like you can be a lot more aggressive than in the first game without being punished. You can still be punished and the combat is still very deliberate, but one thing I like is that you immediately start with riposte, and this really helps a lot in the early combat when you don't really have many combos, and especially up until you get the master move from some of the side missions. This is like a super fun ability to pull off. You can literally deflect and attack in one single go, which almost has no chance to get blocked. I'm pretty sure this was in the first game as well. You just have to attack at the same time as your opponent does, but from the opposite side, which is very easy on keyboard and mouse, mind you. You can just flick your wrist and you can easily switch the direction from which you attack. So yeah, even though it does have quite a bit of jank in it, it's still going to be very fun to engage in combat. Like every chance I get, I always jump into combat just because I want to refine my skills even more. And this also helps because it's going to further promote your sword wielding and your one-handed sword, or whichever weapon you use. You're going to see that increasing in levels so that you can then boost it up with extra perks. And speaking of the perks, they also seem to be very useful. Like a lot of them may provide you with extra bonuses. Like for example, if you use combos a lot, you can reduce enemy stats, defenses, and make your subsequent attacks even stronger as a result, or maybe regenerate your stamina much faster. So a lot of this stuff goes into it. There's quite a bit of planning, there's quite a bit of coordination required, but it also feels like you can just go in and slam at a target as long as you pull it off properly. Now there's also the subject of Mutt. He is back. He was added in a DLC in the first game, but you can issue commands to it, feed it, pet it, increase your bond with it, which also presents other bonuses and perks in there. He's amazing in combat, by the way, because he can easily get sicked on any enemy and he's going to bite and chew at them, giving you enough of a distraction to squeeze in even more hits, especially enemies that already have shields. He's a very good distraction at that. But he's also great at tracking. There are many missions during which you have to find the whereabouts of certain people, like missing persons and whatnot. and he can actually track them for you, making certain quests unfold completely differently just because you have him at your side. And I'm saying that because initially something happens and let's just say you have to retrieve him, but he's very useful, and like I said before, he's just a silly dog. Now, on the subject of graphics and bugs, there's been some significant graphical upgrades here. Obviously, as you can see, a great technical achievement isn't necessarily that the game looks much better, but that it looks very lifelike. It's hard to put into words, but the way the objects, the structures, and the vegetations are all placed, they give that feeling of a real place. It's very hard to put into words, but it literally feels like I'm playing in a real open world environment. I guess it's also because these places are familiar to me because the action takes place relatively close to my country. It's 15th century Bohemia, so modern day Czech Republic, and a lot of the villages and the countryside over there looks very similar to that of my own country. So maybe for that reason, I find the open world to be one of the most realistic I've seen depicted in video games. But all of this is also achieved without any loading screens at all. Besides, maybe when fast traveling or changing regions, there's absolutely no loading screens, so you're free to go from one end of the map to the other and enter pretty much any structure or building without seeing a single loading screen. Now, bugs and performance-wise, there were 1 or 2 instances I had with a bug, which was already documented by that point and likely will have a day 1 fix, so there's no point in even mentioning it. Another one is that some of the facial animations are significantly better in cutscenes compared to dialogues, but that's not a bug, it's just pretty much expected from pretty much all of the games. Otherwise, performance was surprisingly good and the game feels well optimized for how good it looks. Though keep in mind that I'm playing on a very high-end machine, so that's already expected. The only other thing I wanted to mention is the crazy attention to detail before I finish this video off. Now, it's not like Red Dead Redemption 2 level of attention to detail, but yeah, from the new alchemy feature to the blacksmithing to the open world, plus all of the survival mechanics like having to eat, sleep, and consume potions, etc. It really feels like this game has a lot of attention to detail to it. A lot of these features are also very hands-on. They don't feel like a hindrance just yet, but they are very much very involved. So even when brewing potion via the new alchemy mechanic, you're quite literally going to pour in the liquids, mix in the herbs, turn up the fire. So a lot of this is going to happen in real time by your own movements. Same goes with the smithing. You're going to be doing all of that manually. Now I can see some folks finding this a drag at some point, but maybe a quick craft button after learning those recipes initially would be nice at some point. I wouldn't count on it, but I can see some folks maybe not liking that as much. The good news is that you don't have to craft that often because, for example, if you carry your sword and you just repair it every now and then at the blacksmith, you don't have to craft another one unless it's an upgrade. Meanwhile, for potions, you craft multiple at a time, so you can just use them for a lot longer. But I'm telling you, so far, I'm highly impressed and highly drawn to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, looking very positive for now. But obviously, I will reserve more judgment for when I finish the game and can actually bring you the full-on review again on February 3rd. So if you want to see more of that, as well as Kingdom Come Deliverance guides and videos here on the channel, make sure that you subscribe, leave a like on the video, and also maybe activate those notification bells. In the meantime, thanks much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.